as Dennis gets started here. He's next on the agenda, and he's going to give us a few final tips before we start scouting our fields here as soon as the snow is gone and the wheat starts to green up here in the next few weeks. Part of the end program is we have growers in Kentucky, and they'll be probably putting nitrogen on here within a few weeks down there already. So we're not quite there yet, but it's coming quicker than we think.
Well, my clicker ain't working, but that's all right. So anyway, so I just had a few things I wanted to cover with you before you head out to the field. So I'll get into this here, and then ask questions along the way as we go if you have questions. Okay. Technology's great when it works, right? There we go. Okay, so I don't know where Rich is. Rich is over here. You stole my thunder because we should have talked because you stole some of mine and I stole some of yours. So anyway, prices. We know where prices have been, right? This is a USDA chart showing the average monthly price received by wheat, and look at where it's been. And then this is the last, well, I guess it would be through October. The prices are back up in that area. They did dip as low as about $4.25, $4.30. So when you have prices as low as they are, you got to make good decisions based on sound agronomic data about what you're going to purchase for your inputs and how much you're going to put out there on the crop. So with that in mind, you know, he put this up there. John Laporte and I put together this spreadsheet, and it walks through kind of a cost of production. You put your income over here, and you can put a price for straw in here and a yield. If you're not taking any off, you'd put that at 0. You set your price for wheat and then what your yield is. The numbers in black are calculated from this side over here. The numbers in blue, we want you to customize to your farm. But essentially what it does is it allows you to say, well, what happens if I put on 30 gallons of 28%, 75 pounds of MAP in the fall, plus 175 pounds of potash, which gives me these nutrients per acre. What does that do to my bottom line? And what do I need in order to get the yields that I want? And then so you could do this for the nutrients up here. There's also I know you're already planted, but a seed cost calculator. And then there's a chemical calculator down below where you can add in fungicides, plant growth regulators, herbicides, and those kind of things down there. So make good decisions about your crop. Don't cut back. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that if you're putting out products that are maybe extra or things that you don't have to put out, this would be a good year to cut them out because of the price of wheat and where it's at. So when you determine like how much nitrogen you want to put out there, use your actual farm production history. Take the crop yield from the past 3 years on your farm, and that should be your yield goal when you determine how much nitrogen. Don't use the where I want to be in the future, because you got to cut back on expenses so that you can at least break even. And that's what this spreadsheet will do, and it'll tell you. It's been published on the Michigan Wheat website, miwheat.org website right there. And when you get this website, scroll down, and it's a little ways down on the page, but if you scroll down on the miwheat.org page, you find this grower resources. There's 2 boxes there, and each of them have a spreadsheet attached to them. One of them is like a standard cost of production, and then we put one up there where we had a higher yield wheat. I think the wheat yield we put in this one was 90, and the yield goal in this one was 120. So we added a little more inputs into the 120 to kind of show where you would break even at. And so you need to know what your cost of production is before you make these decisions about going in the field. So this is available to you. Just go to miwheat.org, scroll down to grower resources, and then you can click on those 2 green boxes, and you can pick which Excel file you want to use to make those decisions. So let's talk about wheat now. Where are we at? Where are we headed? It's been cold, right? We've had the coldest winter we've had in quite a long time, and probably more snow than we've had in a long time, right? Yeah. So how's the wheat doing? Everybody's asked me, well, how's our wheat outlook? Are we gonna lose yield? Do we have, did it freeze off? Are we gonna have winter kill? What do you guys think? Anybody want to offer opinion? It's all been under snow cover, yes, yes. Wheat can tolerate some pretty cold temperatures, so it can tolerate down to 5 degrees for about 6 days, 0 degrees for about 24 hours, but if it gets down to -9, it better get back up from there pretty quick. It can only tolerate that for about 12 hours. Have we been that cold? Yep. Yeah, so this is in the winter when it's dormant. Yep. Yep. So we've been that cold, haven't we? Okay. What has been the temperature at the ground level where the wheat is? Any ideas? 22 below one day. Yep. It might have been even a little colder than that. But anyway, so one thing that we can look at is the 2-inch soil temperature, because where's the growing point on the wheat right now today? It's under the soil level, right? Okay. So what is the temperature where that crown is? Because, yeah, leaves can freeze off and do damage on the leaves, but they will regrow. Winter kill occurs when the crown dies. Okay. So where's that crown right now? It should be at maybe 1 inch to 1.5 inches below the soil surface, as long as you planted deep enough. If you planted real shallow, it's going to be closer. Okay. So you'd be at a higher risk. So this is the 2-inch soil temperature, or the soil temperature at 2-inch depth, and this is for Hudson. So this green area here shows that we haven't dipped below 30 degrees, well, since January 1. Okay, so this is January 1 up through, I think, Saturday. So the soil temperature hasn't, but look at the air temperatures, this black line. Heck, we got down here to below -15, -16, -18 or so air temperature. So does this absolute cold here indicate that we're killing off our wheat? No, because the growing point is still well protected. The growing point is up here at this temperature, okay? So just keep that in mind. So just to provide more evidence to you, I did this. This is the weather station in Hudson, which is kind of southern Michigan. Now let's move more north from there. This is Sandusky, Michigan, which is about, 40 minutes or so west or east of here. This is what it looks like. They got a little bit colder. Okay, look at this here. They had some temperatures down here below, that's 20 degrees Fahrenheit, soil temperature. They got down to as low as 18 degrees. So remember back what we said, temperatures that can tolerate? Do you think we're okay? I still think we're okay. And then this is what it looked like in Mount Pleasant. So if you're growing more toward that direction, here, this is similar to Hudson. That there's been enough snow cover that we didn't have the soil temperatures getting that cold, okay? Any questions about that? Okay, so we've had this warm temperatures out here recently. What is this doing to our wheat? Can wheat tolerate having, anybody got ponding in their fields right now? No? Yes, a little bit? Okay. So wheat can tolerate about 3 to 4 days of this being underwater. So as long as you got good tile drainage, has anybody seen their tile run yet? Are the ditches filling up? They're running, okay. So that means probably frost is going out enough to where you're starting to get infiltration of that snow melt in through the soil profile, which is a good thing, okay? So as long as you have that tile drain, these things should drain off and you should be okay. However, now I don't know what the forecast is going forward. If we get colder temperatures and we get a layer of ice across this area where it's ponded and it stays cold, even though the water might drain out below it, this layer of ice, if that stays, that can cause some damage, because what happens underneath that ice? We get anaerobic conditions. There's no oxygen under there. The plants still need oxygen even though they're dormant over the winter, okay? So then we can get some damage. The plant changes how it respires, and it goes into this oxidative reduction phase, and it starts using energy reserves to keep the plant alive during that condition, and it can only survive for so long. So hopefully we don't get the icing. So spring management, there's a few things here that we're gonna try to go through. First thing, I would do stand counts in order to really know where you are and to make decisions about how much nitrogen to put out there. You really need to know what kind of a stand you have. And the only way you're going to do it is by getting out there in the field and laying down a tape measure and actually measuring. So what we suggest is we count 3 foot of row, and if it's easier for you, just lay the tape measure down and dig all the plants in there and then separate them out, because it's really hard to count on your hands and knees. Just dig them up in a 3 foot row and just count them all. Count the number of plants and then calculate the average number of plants per foot. And you want to do this in about 3 to 5 locations throughout the field, okay? So once you've done that, then you can look at this chart, depending on your row spacing. If you're on 7.5-inch rows, 15 to 18 plants per foot of row means you're at about 100% yield potential. Now, if that number starts to drop off here, now you're starting to lose yield potential, and if you get down here and say you've got 10, you might want to think about how much nitrogen you're going to put on there. And you might want to back down, or if you want, call me. I'll come out and walk the field with you. And if it's a really poor stand, you might want to tear it out and plant it to corn. Okay? So, but this is one thing that's important to do. You need to get out there and see where you are so that you can know how to manage that crop. Another thing you want to do when you go out is dig. Take a look at the root systems and see what you can see. You know, do you want to see a plant like that? What kind of a root system does that have? Okay, it's not very well developed, is it? Okay, what's the chances of that one surviving? Not very good, okay? So get out there and walk and dig and evaluate and see. You want to see these green root systems, or I'm sorry, the white root systems here growing, and it's a little bit early to see that, but as things start to warm up more and we get further into spring and the plants start to green up and start to grow again, you'll see these new white roots starting to grow. So I mentioned the Wheat Wisdom webinar series, I think, earlier. We did 3 of them, and they were focused this year on economics and marketing rather than agronomy. And those are all posted. All the videos from them are posted on the Michigan Wheat website. So if you missed one of these and you want to see it, I already mentioned the first one was going over that spreadsheet on how to get the most bang out of your buck with your crop inputs. So, but these other ones, the wheat marketing and then planting wheat makes sense. That is available on our on the website. So we've kind of talked a little bit about yen. We've actually kind of covered a little bit of this. One of the things I wanted to highlight, we glazed over it, but we didn't talk a lot about it, is the role of biomass. You've got to produce a larger biomass crop if you want to have high yield. And so we're sitting out here right now. If you look outside, there's wheat planted out here. It looks kind of brown and doesn't really look all that healthy, does it? Okay? So, but the growing point is still alive, which means the plants are not dead. Okay? So the leaf area has been burned, and the plant will spend some energy, regrowing those leaves when it's time to green up and grow in the spring. And so it might penalize us a little bit on yield, but we're not out of the ball game yet. If you walk out there and you look, you might think, oh my God, there's a total crop loss, and that's not the case at all. So between here and, when we get to our flowering fungicide, we've got to build biomass. The more biomass you can build, the better. You've got to get your fertilizer timings right. You've got to make sure you control for diseases. If you know what varieties you plant, you should understand what vulnerabilities in terms of diseases you have. We've seen powdery mildew ramp up here in the last 2-3 years. I see more and more of it out in the field early. Once you get to the first node is visible, you can find that out in the field. So, and there's some varieties that are clearly resistant to it and some varieties that are very susceptible to it. So knowing what your disease resistance are, you can help be prepared to manage that based on what you have. So make sure you're creating the highest biomass crop you can, and then protect that as best you can, given the climate with the prices where we are and knowing what we've got to do in terms of, and Joanna covered this. I'm going to skip that. And I think she mentioned, I think you, Joanna, you had this up there, didn't you? Yeah, heads per meter squared. So, you know, we've got some growers that are, you know, even up here north of 1,100 heads per meter squared. But, you know, when you get down here to a lower number of heads, it just, your yield potential just isn't there. You've got to get to more heads per meter squared. That's how we're going to get the higher yield, at least in this climate here where we're at. I hope one day, Roger, we can be doing things more like you are, because I think that might be our future direction. But we've got some things we have to learn about how to get there for us that I don't think we have in place yet. And then we mentioned, this is just kind of an economic analysis. People say that, oh, those high yield guys, they're making so many passes across the field, they're not making a bit of money. And that is exactly wrong. They're spending more money. Those high yield guys, they're spending more money. What's the difference there? About $40 an acre. But when you look at their cost per bushel is quite a bit lower. Well, in fact, it's almost $1 a bushel lower. Okay, so but you can't afford to go out and make all those inputs and not get the return, not get the yield. You have to get the yield, and it's not, you can't just go out and say, I'm going to put more nitrogen on, and that's going to get me more yield. You have got to figure out all the other things. Roger talked about paying attention to detail. One of the things that was key in their farm factor was paying attention to detail. That is very true here. You've got to manage every bit of that crop production season along the way and do the very best you can. Because if you let one thing slip, you can do everything else right, but that one thing that slipped may be the cause of your low yield. So maybe you ramped up nitrogen and you added a fungicide pass thinking that's going to help me get higher yield, but the one thing that slipped kept you from doing that. You've got to manage everything right. And the best way to learn how to manage everything right is get involved in the end, because we'll have our wrap-up meeting tomorrow here, and we're going to talk about all these things. And so the more you can learn about the crop, how it grows and develops, the better able you're going to be to manage that crop. So there is still time to register for the yen. I talked to a couple folks already today about signing up. If you want to sign up, there's a QR code. I'm going to leave this. This will be my last slide. I'll leave this up there. You can scan that, and that'll take you to the registration page. Or you can just go to greatlakesyen.com and click on how to participate. And then when you get on that screen, scroll down and click the little start registration button. And then you can register, and it'll take you, after you register, you pay, and then you'll be in the program. So we are still taking registrations for this year. The cost is $325. Well, early registration was $300. Now it's $325. Does anybody have any questions about the yen or about the program we've had today or about wheat production in general as we start to wrap up? Are you all tired? It's time to go home. Brandon?
How much damage are the deer doing out there in my fields where there's 30 or 60 of them every afternoon?
Brandon, I've never heard that question. How about deer damage? How much is the damage is the deer doing when there's 30 or 80 or 400 deer in my field, right?
I can't go out there and look, so do I have viable wheat plants out there still?
Okay, so that's a great question, and I'm teasing you a little bit about the number of deer, but anyway, so deer are feeding on wheat is a problem, but it is less of a problem in the fall and in the very early spring. In fact, when you go down into the southern plains, they actually plant wheat and they graze cattle on it until they get to what they call hollow stem. Hollow stem is just before the growing point, the meristematic tissue moves above the soil surface. Now, if you have deer or cattle munching and they chew off the growing point, now you got a big problem, okay? But right now, where's that growing point? It's under the soil surface, okay? So the feeding that they're doing, how much damage are they doing? Maybe some, but it's not gonna take out your stand. despite the 400 deer that are on your field only, right? And none of the other neighbors don't have the problem either. Other questions? Eric, do you have any final comments in the back, or? Okay. Joanna or Roger, do you have any final things you want to say? Oh, question in the back. Test weight per bushel. You're on a metric system for test weight, aren't you? So it's kilograms per hectoliter, which ours is pounds per bushel. We'd have to do a little bit of conversion. Is that? Joanna's going to try to cross-reference it to look. I think they're pushing in that 60 to maybe 62, but we'll see. Give us a minute. Yep. Yeah, if you want to open it. It's under presentations.
Oops.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that was not you. That was me.
Oh, is it in there? Yeah, okay. I'm sorry.
Avery or Winchester bushel?
Shit, I don't know.
Probably Avery. So 68.1 kilograms per hectoliter is 54.6 pounds per bushel.
Really? It's lower?
Yeah, 68 kilograms per hectoliter.
Okay. What we think is their test weight is lower than ours. But that may make sense because you're primarily growing feed wheat. Would your milling wheats have higher test weight than that? Yeah.
Or 75.
Yeah, so that'll make a big difference.
75 to 60.2.
Yeah, 60.2, so similar test weights.